All right, continuing on, we're going to be looking at the dragons. Tavern Tier 1, Unchanged. Tavern Tier 2, we got Skyfin back. This is just kind of a. Honestly, Skyfin's normally pretty bad, but if you have Battlecry minions in the shop and you can make it a 3/5, sometimes you'll take it. Thousandth Paper Drake, this has been around a couple times. It's just start turn, it gives a dragon Wind Fury. We'll say that it would become relevant with something like a Greenskeeper, but not a crazy dragon. But remember, with something like Terragosa or um, similar, giving Wind Fury permanently is not bad. Amber Guardian's still around. This is duos. Roaring Rallier's back. Whenever a friendly dragon attacks, give it 3/1. This Roaring Rallier, like, it looks bad. However, especially when you have something like the Paper Drake, like, this can give you a ton of tempo and allow dragons to stabilize pretty well in the mid game. Dragons generally don't have the strongest early. Misfit Dragon Link can let you stabilize a little bit. Um, but Rallier really gives you that mid game tempo. Terragosa, we know Terragosa. Greenskeeper is a new one. After this attacks trigger your rightmost battle cry. Really, this is just going to be how good are battle cries. We'll say there's a couple decent ones that are very strong that this will probably have some value with. Poet is still around. Interesting that they got rid of the Nightbane. So the main thing that you're probably going to use Poet for is permanent Divine Shields, and then get out of it unless you're playing one of the relevant trinkets like the Alliance Keychain. Um, let's just check. I didn't see a Greater Alliance chain keychain, and if I remember, they normally they give them the same names, but let's just make sure it's not in the like graders or something. Yeah, so it looks like there's only the Lesser Alliance keychain in this season, which we'll see. But because there's no, here, we'll give a little sneak peek at Quilboars. Um, there's no bristle. What was it? Not bristleback. I forget what the one that was like an elemental Quilboar that attacks, but that would set your stats to 3/3. So that thing's not in the game. So it looks like there's no way to really hurt keychain. Now, because there's only a single alliance keychain that lets lesser, it's going to be a lot harder to have some of that like poet just going crazy kind of stuff. Promo Drake's still around. Again, these are going to form a little bit of a core just for in the mid game, especially with Roaring Rallier, just a big 3 minion core for stabilizing in your mid game. Tower Tier 5 is all brand new dragons. So first one, Bronze Stewart. Battlecry Death Rattle, give your other dragon 7 attack. Fellfire Conjurer, we talked about this one a little bit with the demons, but at the end of your turn, tavern spells that grant sets grant an extra 1/1. Fire Skill Hoarder, Battlecry, Death Rattle, get a Shiny Ring, and then the new Spirited Whims Drink. This is Battlecry, get a random dragon. So this get a random dragon is probably going to be the best one that you can proc off Greenskeeper, followed by like the Hoarder, and then probably followed by the Steward. Steward's going to be like a tempo. The issue is that it's not that great because it's only in combat, and it obviously it plays with Poet a little bit, but 7 attack's just not going to get you a ton of long-term scaling. Wormstrike can let you get some of the better dragons, especially when we go to 6. 6 has a lot of the win condition type dragons, but what it's looking like is Tavern Tier 4 will be a good stabilized spot for dragons. Tavern Tier 5 is the value generators, and Tavern Tier 6 is going to be the value payoff. One of the exceptions to that rule, Ignition Specialist is going to be a really good minion to triple into, but it's another value generator. Get 2 Tavern spells at the end of your turn. This plays with something like Drakari, but a lot of the other like end of turn dragons aren't around, so I think Specialist is just you're not really going to be doing a big combo with Drakari and Ignition Specialist too often. Caligos is still around. We've talked about procking battle cries with something like the Greenskeeper, so this gives you a couple extra stats to stabilize, especially that first turn you go into Cali. Cali is still going to be if you have Brand, you can go Cali. If you don't, you don't. And then this new one, Fire Forged Evoker. Start a combat, give your dragons 1/1. After you cast 2 Tavern spells, improve this 2 left. So we just kind of look at this in terms of comparing it to Caligos. You need to do 2 spells to essentially have the same payoff as a single battle cry. Um, Ignition Specialist, for example, will do one of those. One turn after Hoarder, you might get an extra one. Um, and then let's just say you have some type of spell generation with your trinket. You might be able to get this to 2/2 3/3 your first turn as a stabilize. So if we look at it that way, it does stabilize a little bit quicker than Caligos. The issue is that with Caligos, you have something like Brand to generate a lot more spells, and Brand to duplicate the battle cry effect. And that's why Brand and Caligos are so strong, is they kind of like scale off of each other, where Brand is doing two things, where one is making Caligos scale faster, and it's giving Caligos more stuff to scale off of. And Fireforge Evoker, I don't think is going to be quite as strong. Fireforge Evoker might see a little bit of play in like the amalgam type comp with all the all tribe minions, but I don't see it being a super strong win condition unless trinkets end up showing that they end up being able to carry the dragon. So first we talked about Alliance Keychain. Alliance Keychain is definitely going to be playable if you have Poet. Um, but Poet without Poet, it's going to be kind of weak. However, you can just kind of use it to stabilize if you have one really big taunt type minion. Book of Medivh, and I'm kind of throwing other just spell generator trinkets into that same idea, is going to be pretty strong with trying to stabilize with the Fireforged. If you could get an early Fireforge, you're probably happy taking a Book of Medivh because this is giving you two essentially a 1/1 buff to your board every turn. Obviously, compasses are really strong with the Tavern Tier 4 dragons trying to find a bunch of the poets, the promo drakes, Amber Guardian type things. We'll see if that kind of continues. Dragon Glider generally is just a stabilized type card. They have made it stronger this season where it's a 3/1 rather than, if I remember, it was a 2/1 and a 4/1 back in the day. So it's a little bit stronger in that sense. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be game winning, but we'll see. Extravagant Scale, I'm not sure if this is a dragon trigger or not. It looks like a dragon, it talks like a dragon, but the buff itself isn't exactly like game dragony. When you spend 20 gold, double your minions' attacks once per turn. For a greater trinket, I don't think this is doing enough. Fairy Spellbook, this is going to be your payoff. Excuse me. So Fairy Spellbook, you can actually do both of the dragon win conditions, I think, pretty comfortably, where you have Caligos, you have a Bran, you have a Fireforge Evoker, you probably have Ignition Specialist. So one, two, three, four. You might have five. You might have five Hoarder. So you would either do Greenskeeper and Wormsdrake or just Hoarder and probably something else. Um, I'm not sure what your last dragon might be. It might be even the persistent poet to give buffs, but those are kind of like the two ways I see. So Fireforge, Ignition Specialist, Caligos, Brand, that's four minions. And then it would be 5, 6 with a cycle spot, or five, maybe even just two orders, 5, 6, to get evoker values. But that's kind of what I see as your six dragon court. And if you do that, then something like Fancy Spellbook gets its value. Um, and it will kind of just like be able to give you extra spell generation, and because you have the brand, you should be able to get it to proc multiple times. I skipped over to this one. Fairy Dragon Scale. Whenever a friendly dragon attacks, give it Divine Shield 3 times per combat. Not a bad one. For a greater trinket, I don't know if it's necessarily doing enough, but it is definitely like a kind of a stabilized trinket. I think you would pick it if you've fallen behind. I don't know if it's going to be something that causes you to win. The only thing that's kind of big with it is it's on each of your attacks. So because you have like that Wind Fury dragon, you can potentially get both of those out of the way very quickly and get a lot of tempo in your fight to begin with. Essentially getting two free attacks to start, and that might be able to take off some type of combo pieces or snipe like um a Titus or something. But dragons right now don't have a way to like get around cleave type stuff like their 7 drop does with being able to cleave, but there's not really a huge payoff for like the Wind Fury Divine Shield like multiple attacks to start the fight right now. Let's just double check any other dragon trinkets that are worth talking about. Selfless Portrait, making Selfless a battle cry is pretty relevant, I think. Just as with like Caligos type comps. Smuggler Portrait they reworked where the Whelp Smuggler is now a 4/12 and a dragon. I think it was always a dragon, but they didn't have this 412 line. This would be probably a better lesser trinket to pick up just for some. Again, like the whole thing with dragons is they have like that mid game tempo for them to try and get to their actual comp in the late game, and then really their late they kind of have like two big spikes. They have the mid game spike and then the end game spike. And really this might just help get you through that middle spot in between the mid and end game spike to get there. Like if I were to say like turns 4 through 6 are strong, and then turns like 10 and above they're strong. And that's kind of about it. Terragosa's sticker. Your left and right mage dragons permanently keep any enchantments from combat. I don't think this is going to be that game warping. You might get a couple extra divine shields, but you already have that ability to get them. Like essentially, it gives you the poet effects without poet. I feel like we missed brand portrait. Get a brand bronzebeard, a random battlecry minion. Your brand's bronzebeards are both murlocs and dragons, so this is obviously going to be around in dragons. Having your brand be a dragon is really nice for Caligos because it makes it so your brand's not falling behind. Getting a random battle cry is also really good. So I would say if you have a Caligos, Bronzebeard portrait is definitely a very strong pickup. Um, and if you already have some of the other like battle cry synergy type things, like if you're doing the Greenskeeper and the Spirited Wyrmdrake, Bronzebeard portrait's going to be a lot stronger because it gives you those two dragons every turn instead, and that can kind of help you find the Galagos, and that kind of replaces your like keychains. I mentioned how keychains are really strong for like the Tavern Tier 4 dragons. Well, that kind of replaces it with having a tribe specific battle cry for finding minions. So that's kind of my prediction. But dragons, I don't think that are going to be extremely different. Fireforge Evoker is kind of like the new add-on, but Caligos Ignition Specialists are going to probably be your core for like Ignition Specialist is going to be your 6 drop triple into to stabilize. Caligos is going to be your long term, get a ton of stats. Fireforge Evoker, it seems like it's just a little bit of a plus to the Caligos buffing. So that's kind of where I see dragons being. All right, see ya. Bye.